Okay. I guess first thing, and we'll make a comment thinking about Shirley Burks, who was a long-time employee of the school system and just passed away.
Yes. And,
Okay, so we all should
yes, and
take a minute to think about her.
Yes, and she was a worker in the schools, and she was a worker here. And
That's what I was thinking, she worked here.
yes, she did, and I don't know how many years, but a long time.
Your mom came in 2004.
Well, she was probably from the 70s.
Definitely.
I
remember
think she
her
worked during the
when I was
70s.
a young girl. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any way we could send a letter to the family?
We have arranged for flowers to be sent to the family, but perhaps we could also do letters thanking them for years of support.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Definitely.
Okay, new business, we've got a CHS overnight field trip, February 8th, 9th, 14th, 16th, 2019, wrestling team, region and state wrestling events.
Yes, the request was put in by wrestling coach Randy Phillips on 2/4/19 for the Covington High School wrestling team to go to Castlewood High School 2/8 through 2/9. Actually, tomorrow, they're going to be participating in the Super Regional Wrestling event, and there's 7 students going and 2 chaperones, and they will be spending the night somewhere down Western Front Hotel in St. Paul, Virginia. So they're doing very well. I think they've got a lot of good wrestlers, and they're hoping for some good outcomes, I think, at the event.
Okay, so we'll move into the budget work session, and the first thing I need to say again is we still have a lot of variables. It's hard to work out the definition of a budget. We're uncertain of the city funding, we're uncertain of the state funding, and we're uncertain of the amount of the increase in our health insurance. So those are all integral parts of the budget. So hopefully tonight what we can do, we'll go through the need list, look at some priorities. We talked about it here with the board members. Melinda has some things she would like to share as far as the needs, and we need to look at the cost of what those needs are going to be.
For revenues, we're anticipating $11,582,663. And you can see we have some pretty significant revenue increases, and they all come from the state. We have the compensation supplement, which is by far the largest, of $228,364. We have the regional special ed tuition, which is $126,342, and we have supplemental lottery funds, which is an increase of $72,235, and we have increased ADM money of $62,362, and we have some at-risk increase of $33,956. Now, our ADM, we are using the governor's budget since that's the only budget we have so far, and we're projecting an ADM of $975. That's up 10. We budgeted $965 this year. Right now we're at $988. Of course, we're all waiting until March 31st to see what the number actually is, but this budget has $975.
So March 31st is the cutoff date?
Yes, yes.
March 31st will determine what our final state funds are for this current year.
Okay. And you said right now 980?
88. I think was that was that our
Yes,
last
it
board
was.
meeting. We might have lost something. So our total expenditures right now are $11,386,130. So you can see that we have money. We have a difference in our revenues and expenditures of about $196,000. What I put in this budget, everything is level funded except for personnel, and those are the changes in personnel that I have. I've put step increases for all eligible staff and fringe benefits for those staff. I put in a 10% increase in healthcare. We will not know our healthcare rates until probably April. And that 10% increase, that's for the board to share 10%, and then we'll pass on 10% to the employees. That's a literacy coach position with benefits. That's an accounting clerk position with benefits. That's a CHS instructional aid position with benefits. And all of those 3 new positions I've put in with a dual healthcare plan, which is kind of middle of the road. It's increasing our 2 part-time nurses to full-time with benefits, and also on a higher pay scale than they're currently on.
One new position. Now 3 full-time nurses? Is this?
We currently have 1 full-time nurse and 2 part-time. This increases to 2 part-time to full-time. So I guess essentially it's 1, but you're adding benefits to them, so. Right now we have 2 part-time with no benefits. We're increasing both those part-time to full-time, so they'll both get benefits. We do anticipate 2 retirements, and that'll save us about $26,000. So if you want a further breakdown of just exactly where all that new state money is coming from, it's on the second page there. But I just thought I'd just sort of, there are major categories that are increasing, and I didn't break every bit of it down. But you have to give a 5% salary increase over 2 years for SOQ positions, and it can be an average increase. But you have to have given that increase over the biennium in order to be eligible for that funds, and we have done that.
Any other questions about the document that Rebecca?
So I guess I can tell you what it doesn't include. Like I said, it doesn't include any increases in non-personnel expenditures. It doesn't include any increases for any staff that are at the top of their salary scale. And it doesn't include any increases for teachers who have been here less than 5 years.
Are our students still getting free lunch and free breakfast?
Yes.
So that's what that money is?
We get federal dollars
Federal
for
dollars.
school lunch and breakfast, and that goes into that fund. We also get some small state funds for the cafeteria. And then we charge all expenditures, food, whatever the cafeteria needs, we charge that money to that fund.
And the cafeteria workers' salaries?
The cafeteria workers' salaries, and we do supplement that fund by about $125,000. So if we don't get level funding from those things, that would obviously reduce our revenue.
Put together, and I have a document for you about what were my budget priorities for last school year, and some of them are very similar to this school year. And you can just take a look at those. It was for 2 new buses. It was for an early childhood special education teacher at Edgemont Primary School. It was for driver education cars. It's a CHS that we survive. It was for the fleet of staff cars, 1 or 2 new vans. It was for maintenance vehicles, 1 van and 1 truck. It was the 1% cost of living increase for employees for this past year and this coming year, to be able to help with health insurance for our employees, the staff assistants in the finance office, which is the accounting clerk, and maintenance in all buildings. And towards the end, I added a CTE teacher at Jeter Watson and CHS, if there was a way we could share one, and a special ed teacher at Jeter Watson. So those were the budget priorities that I had developed for last school year. And then I also passed out a much longer list for this school year with 22 items on it that I feel are all equally important. And you all saw this last week, and I asked you about your priorities, but my priorities were the 3 full-time nurses with benefits with a new scale. That's in our budget. Continue the teacher steps on the salary scale. That's on our budget. Proposed classified staff, salary scales. We've not been able to keep up with our classified staff, and I have some information that just came to me, and I'd like to discuss that in a minute. Full-time counselor at Edgemont, we might be required to do that because of the new standards of accreditation. A special education paraprofessional at Covington High School, we've cut many of them over the years. That's in the budget. The full-time accounting clerk for the school board is in our budget right now. The literacy coach is in our budget right now. The special ed teacher at Jeter Watson or Edgemont or CHS, wherever they're listed here, perhaps can come out of that regional special ed grant. Mrs. Morgan wants elementary teachers for a grade 2 or transition kindergarten. We'd like to have a full-time CTE teacher back at CHS. There's a need for a floating paraprofessional at Edgemont Primary School to assist the kindergarten teachers. That's not in the budget. Nor is another special ed teacher, as I mentioned. I'm hoping the special ed money can help with that. Driver ed car, the fleet of staff cars, the maintenance vehicles, cost of living for employees, health insurance, a lease, a new bus, maintenance of the buildings, need for continued upkeep, an evening off ed program, an additional bus driver, and we heard about the athletic budget at CHS. So those are things that, all of those things are important, and we can't do them all. I did have Mr. Cantrell, who had many, you saw his entire list, have him prioritize what he thought his building needed, and I have a copy of that document for each of you tonight. And then just on what his priority
Johnson,
is.
how many of last year's priorities were met?
The maintenance in the building, we did some things, and we did do the steps increases, which I guess is kind of like the cost of living. We did buy one van, and we did buy one for maintenance, and we did buy one van for our fleet, our Covington fleet of vehicles. We bought 2 used vehicles for 4 and 5 last year.
We leased the buses.
And we leased the buses last year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we accomplished a lot.
We did, very much.
Plus we did some asbestos.
And we did some
Yeah, we did.
asbestos too.
25,000.
And we paved one parking lot, we sealed the CHS parking lot, and that was with some of the extra dollars that we had. And so yes, we did a lot of things. So you can see Mr. Cantrell's list of what he thinks he feels that he would make CHS run more smoothly is athletic funding, a special ed teacher or assistant, a history teacher, a CTE teacher, Chromebook set, which we're working on Chromebooks for Edgemont and Jeter. We purchase Chromebooks every year when we can.
Can that come out of some,
It can come out of some technology money, but it also has to be a local match, so we are working on that. And then I also asked Mrs. Morgan at Edgemont to do the same thing, because she had a long list of things that she thought were necessary for her building, and are y'all leaving things from this book?
Yes, she is.
Back in the back eight. So Mrs. Morgan thought from her list of things she shared that a transition kindergarten teacher was her #1 request. An additional teacher assistant that she would earmark for kindergarten was #2. In Title I last year, we had to not fill a position when they cut the $130,000 at the end of the year. So she was creative with her Title I staff. So she would like to have an additional 2nd grade teacher, because there's 93 first graders that are going to 2nd grade. Most of them will be promoted, and then she could have back 2 Title I teachers, a PALS tutor, and we all know how important literacy is in that building. A full-time guidance counselor, an additional special ed teacher, money for resources for language, arts, and math that are aligned to the curriculum framework. And we have started taking some things from the textbook allotment, so we've done some things, dictionaries and thesauruses this year, so if we can possibly do some more with that there. Chromebooks, Dr. Furman's currently got a purchase order about ready to go for a Chromebook for grade 3 and grade 6. She'd like to have a lunch monitor so they could have duty-free lunches again. Another pre-K teacher, or early childhood teacher, more Title I funds with the reading coach. And we have looked into whether or not the Title I grant, the monies that we get, could possibly help fund this literacy coach. But we might have to work on our plan for Title I, which is now targeted assistance, and we could think about writing a different plan for division-wide, is it division-wide? My brain. Whole school, I don't know. But we have had conversations with the Department of Ed, Title I staff about the reading literacy coach and Title I funds.
And we're looking to share at that point that they may pay half or something, so it could save us.
If we go whole school, which I think is the right word, and move it to 2 schools, the coach could be paid out of Title I's funds, and they could work with every teacher that teaches literacy, but you have to write your plan that way. Our plan isn't currently written that way, and so we've got to do
But could their
some,
entire salary be out of Title I?
possibly,
If we, yeah.
but then we got to see if we have enough money
Enough
to
to
do
do
the
that,
Title
right.
I teachers that we desperately need. So we've looked into a lot of things, but this is what Mrs. Morgan felt like her building needed. And Mr. Bennett's list was very small, and it's special ed teachers, it's salary increases, it's painting in his building. Mr. Bennett's was continue steps on pay scale, upgrade camera system. We're trying to do that with our current dollars. Additional special ed teacher, get back to the 2017-2018 school allocations. When the $130,000 was cut, we had to cut the school's allocations, and it was a 10%, I believe. And he would like some laptop or Chromebooks for 4th and 5th grade. We're getting him some for 6th grade right now. He'd like to have his parking lot painted and sealed, which we tried to do last year. He'd like some more paint in the classrooms and the hallways. We did some of that last year and year before. And there's some bathroom hardware that need to be upgraded in his boys' restroom. So Mr. Bennett's list was not as lengthy as the other two, but he has some safety and security things, keeping the building upgraded, teachers. I think everybody feels that additional teacher support would be important. But this is the list I gave you in your original packet from Mr. Bennett.